Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back, guys. I'm back with Claudine, and we're continuing with the choir chapels of Notre Dame. This is part 2 if you've been tuning in, and Claudine's going to take it from here.
Yeah, so we're back in the back and I'm fighting off something, so bear with me on my voice. It's deeper and sexier now. I just like to think of it that way instead of like a frog. But where we left off, we're in the back of the cathedral now. In the back of the cathedral, if you listened to last week, or you've been inside Notre Dame, or you have seen the amazing pictures from the inside, this is where we get all the color. So these are the chapels that Viollet-le-Duc had painted. He painted all the other ones too, but they retained their original paintings of the 19th century with Viollet-le-Duc. And we start in the chapel that is dedicated to Louis IX, also known as Saint Louis. He was the King of France. He lived from 1214 to 1270. He died in Tunis in 1270. He was named the saint. He's the only king that we have that was named a saint. He was canonized by Pope Boniface the seventh on July 11th, 1297. When you became a saint back then, it was really fast. Now, like Mother Teresa, I don't think she's a saint yet. I think like the process now, they've really lengthened it of all the things that they have to do. But back then it was a little quicker. And his feast day is celebrated every year on August 25th. But Saint Louis is figured prominently, especially in the backside of the church, also because Notre Dame was being built in the mid 12th century. So when Saint Louis was roaming around the city of Paris, he was hanging out in Notre Dame, which is a crazy thing to think about.
That is really weird because it's hard to think about the timings, of how this stuff all overlaps.
Yeah, so in the 13th century, he's going in there to pray, and we could walk in there today and basically be walking in his footsteps.
I love it. We always are walking in footsteps in Paris. This is like such a historical place, and that's why it means so much to learn all this.
It is, and it's so cool. And sometimes, you think about that everywhere you go, but sometimes there's just places that you're like, oh yeah, okay, I know that I'm in the footsteps. But every part of Paris, it would be. But it's a beautiful chapel, and it's a double chapel, so it's two bays. And it was formerly the Saint Martin and Saint Anne and Saint Michel. On the wall, this is one where you have beautiful, the walls are really gorgeous. On the left side, as you walk in, there's three little sculptures at the top, and they are the statuettes of Saint Denis, one of my favorites. Here he is holding his head. There's other places in the cathedral that he is not. He actually has his head still attached, which is always surprising. You have next to him Saint Rustique and then Saint Ulitière, and those were his two buddies that were with him when they lost their heads. But they did not pick up their heads and walk off just like Saint Denis did. But that's why Saint Denis is so special, because he could walk with a severed head.
I love that they didn't pick up their head for them.
I mean, there's a lot of questions that go with that of how did he walk with his head? And when depending on where I am, he's all over, especially in Montmartre, he's all over Paris, in churches, in museums. And anytime I tell his story, the looks on people's faces is always interesting. There's the people that are very skeptic, and they're like, seriously, are you kidding me? And I'm like, hey, I'm just reporting the story back to you. I'm just telling you, this is a story of Santini. But there are a lot of people that have been beheaded. They're martyred saints, and there's a couple other ones in Notre Dame as well, which is pretty funny. But these statuettes are way up high, and I was recently looking at some pictures I took in the cathedral before the fire, and this little part of it, actually the difference of it between before and after the fire doesn't look that different. It doesn't look that much, all of a sudden it's so sparkling clean. It was kind of a place in the cathedral that didn't get super super dirty. Underneath that, the murals were painted by Viollet-le-Duc, and on the left side under Saint Denis you have four women. And on the left is Saint Clotilde. We've talked about her before. She was the Queen of France. She was the wife of Clovis. So, she was the homegirl of our Saint Genevieve besties. Next to her is Saint Radegonde. She was a queen of France as well in the 6th century. She was married to Clotaire the First, the son of Clovis. So she spends her life next to her mother-in-law. Who knows if that was a good thing or not. And then next to her is the Blessed Isabel of France. She was a nun. She's the sister of Louis IX. She was very devout, and she built a monastery just outside of Paris. And then next to her is Saint Jean de Valois, who was also a queen of France. She was the daughter of Louis XI. She married Louis d'Orléans in 1476, and her husband died in 1483. Her brother Charles VIII took the throne until 1498, when her husband had his shot. He said their marriage was never consummated, so he fought to have it annulled. She did get it annulled, and he decided to marry his sister-in-law, Anne of Brittany. Jeanne served as queen for only 8 months and 10 days, and happily returned to her life of devotion to the Virgin Mary and founded the monastic order of the Annunciation. She's like, peace out, dude. Going back to do my own thing.
I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. And some of those ladies we've talked about because they're in the Jardin de Luxembourg, of course. But I do love how many of the touches around Saint Louis are in this chapel. The walls are really beautiful because they're painted, there's stripes, and then some of them have fleur-de-lis, and then some of them have little crowns in that for Saint Louis. There is also a cenotaph. A cenotaph, if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, is a commemorative marker. So it's not a tomb, it's not an effigy. It is basically just a marker saying this is, a marking that this is who lived there or is buried there. It was for Louis Antoine, the Cardinal de Noailles. This was done by Victor Geoffroy Deschamps again in the year of 1860s. So most of the cenotaphs you see in the church today were all done under that time of Viollet-le-Duc. There's a few of the older ones, but most of them are that mid-19th century. There's a couple that I'll tell you about later that are of the oldest ones in the church. Excuse me. He was born May 27th, 1651 in Cantal. He was the second son of Anne de Noailles, who was the Duke, with his second wife, Louis Boyer, who was the lady in waiting to Queen Marie-Thérèse. And so he was the bishop and Count of Chalons in Champagne. Noyer became quite close with the Madame de Maintenon, which led Louis XIV to name him the Archbishop of Paris on August 19, 1695. Maintenon, of course, was the second wife of Louis XIV, kind of the secret one that we've done an episode about. He blessed the first stone of the high altar of Notre Dame and the first stone of the Église Saint-Louis en Lille, which is just on the next island over. After the death of Louis XIV in 1715, the regent Philip d'Orléans named him president of the Council of Conscience. So that's a good thing to be named of. The Duchess du Berry was the daughter of the regent, was frequently pregnant after her husband died in 1714. In March 1719, she gave birth and feared she might have another child after that. So the cardinal arrived and asked Longueuil Gergy. He thought, well, she actually thought she was going to, she might die during the middle of this. So the parish priest of Saint Sulpice was told to come and give her the last sacrament, and he refused. So she survived, but became pregnant again right after that. And the next time she died, in July of 1719. So he was kind of got in trouble for that. He was a polarizing figure who upset many people. And upon his death on May 4th, 1729, he was buried in multiple spots of the cathedral, meaning his body was, his entrails and everything else. But his heart was actually put into this chapel, which is rather surprising because usually they didn't have that. He made many changes to the cathedral, including replacing many of the windows of the South Rose window at considerable expense because the stained glass of the south side was actually bowing out. So a lot of them had to be replaced. So there's only about 20% of that window that is actually original to the 13th century. But in this chapel, there's a medallion in the top of the stained glass that is of his family, the Noyer. There's 18 members of the Noyer family that are buried here at the end of the church, just outside of this chapel. So probably more than any family that is in Notre Dame is their family.
I mean, they're just all over the place. They're leaving some remains, they got a lot going on over there.
There's some intestines over there. There's some braids at other places. It's really gross when you kind of think about it. But I
Yeah.
think it's so funny that they were like, here's this great person, or the king died. And it's like they would do that. They would pull the entrails, which is such a weird word for intestines, and they'd be like, we'll bestow his entrails onto this chateau or this church. It's like, okay, gross.
Yeah, like why? Why?
I mean, I think having the reliquary of like, here's the bone of their little toe. Like, I think I'd rather be like, we'll take the bone.
Yeah, like thanks, but no thanks. Couldn't we just use like a t-shirt or something? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Can you know, like, the king was here or something? Yeah, it's kind
yeah.
of strange. It's probably good that that kind of stuff went out of style.
I'm really glad we're not still like, just putting body parts all over the place. Like
Yeah,
let's
no, it's a little, I mean, there's ashes, but that's a much different thing.
yeah, no finger bones, no
No,
intestines.
no finger bones, please. Um, Also in this on the right side, is a tomb that is just kind of a big, huge stone, rectangular piece, and it's standing up and it's kind of against the wall. It's the tombstone of Etienne Hiver, who was a canon of Paris and Rouen. He died in 1468. This is actually a 15th century piece. It's one of two of the only ones in the church that are this old. It's really interesting. Originally had a really hard time finding anything about it, but I recently was reading this other book that I found from the 19th century about Notre Dame, and it actually had a little more details. And when you look at this, I'll put a picture on my website, but you look at it from the bottom up, and on the bottom is like a very low relief of his body, and it's got like worms on it or some sort of bug. And then you go above that, and it's of like a grave and him kind of popping out of the grave. And at the top, it's him kind of going up to the heavens. It's very interesting. But at first I was like, are those bugs eating the guy? But it is 15th century, so it is actually pretty cool. On the right side, you have another statues up at the top but then but below that, you have more murals of Viollet-le-Duc, and this is some of the male saints. So of course, on the left, we have Saint Louis, King of France, as we know. He's there, of course, holding the crown of thorns. He Next to him is Saint Cloud, and he lived in the 6th century, and he was a monk. He was the grandson of Clovis and the first son of Clodomir. When both brothers were killed, he renounced the crown and became a monk. So that's kind of another theme here. You've got these other, former royal people that denounce their crowns. Excuse me again. And then Saint Louis d'Anjou, he was a bishop of Toulouse, son of Henry II, King of Naples, and the great nephew of Louis IX, of course. And then on the right, you had the Blessed Charlemagne, Emperor of the West, a King of the Franks, and the Holy Roman Emperor. So, of course, we have to have a little bit of Charlemagne in there.
It just wouldn't be the same without Charlemagne. Just wouldn't work,
Excuse me.
you
I
know.
know. I love Charlemagne. He's out front. I've been doing a recent research project. I'm really trying to only do one research project at a time, but it never works out that way. And a lot of it has to do with Charlemagne and how he's painted in the ceilings of the Louvre.
Oh, we gotta hear more about that later because I mean, Claudine, I don't know anybody that researches more than Claudine, so she knows her stuff, guys. Definitely always check out her blog for this information too.
Yeah, and even today, I'm going to a conference in the Louvre in my special library about these pillars that Napoleon took from where Charlemagne is buried. So Charlemagne's going full circle for me today, but I can't wait because we talked about those pillars in the episodes we did about the summer apartments of Anne of Austria. So I'm so excited to go to that conference tonight, and hopefully I don't cough up a lung.
Please don't disturb the Charlemagne conference, Claudine.
No, it's usually me and 30 people, so it's very small. So the next chapel is the Saint Marcel. Saint Marcel was the bishop of Paris. He was born in Paris at an unknown date, but by the Petit Pont. So he was literally born like within 2 blocks of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, which is so cool. He was born in the fourth century. And so he obviously, Paris is much different than it was from fourth century. He died in 436 in November. He was buried along what is the Roman road today. There's 3 miracles. The first two that he did was as a child. He was challenged by a forger to pick up a hot iron bar to guess the weight, but he grabbed it and he wasn't burnt by this hot rod of metal that was scalding. And so, but it also sounds like something you'd see in a circus.
Yeah, like seriously, who's making these?
I think they were a little loose, like especially like with Mother Teresa. Like they have to, I don't know what the rules are about how many miracles, but they have to have like perform miracles. Sometimes it could be like this person was cured or whatever it was. But it is kind of funny, like, okay, that was a miracle. I mean, that would be a miracle if you could touch a piece of scalding metal. Second was as subdeacon. He took some water from the Seine. He brought it to the bishop to wash his hands during mass, and it changed into wine. I mean, now we're talking.
I mean, that's a real miracle. Come on, let's set the bar.
That is a real one, but also gross. Like if you took water from the Seine, if we could do this, if this was like a superpower, I still would not drink it.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't trust it. Nope.
No, not going to do that. The third was as bishop. He cared for those that were most turned their back, the church would turn their back on. And so a quote unquote bad woman died and wasn't allowed to be buried in the church cemetery. So Marcel and a small group of people took her body to the banks of the Bièvre River, which is the river that's like hidden away underneath the city. And when they came across to the place where they were going to bury her, there was a dragon. The dragon wanted the body of the woman. Marcel stood his ground. He faced the dragon, that he struck him 3 times with his pastoral stick of the Holy Trinity and killed the dragon.
I mean, I'm not buying it.
I know. So a while ago, I was like, Saint Marcel, like who's Saint Marcel? He killed a dragon in Paris? Like what? I need some more information on this one. So there's your information. But because of this, because I learned this little story, I finally figured out there's a statue on the south corner of the facade of Notre Dame. And forever I was like, who is that? And I couldn't find anything in a book. I've asked people that know a lot about Notre Dame. They didn't know. And now I figured it out because he's standing on a dragon.
Ah, I always wondered about that.
So now I know it's Saint Marcel, and it really was one of my great mysteries of life. There's one more on the facade of why there is these straight triangle lines above the door on the left, and that one is another one that nobody could give me an answer on.
Well, now you
I
have your
will,
answer.
I will go to my grave with the dragon finding the answer for that one. But Saint Jean, he was also a homegirl, his homegirl was Saint Genevieve too, and he was a big proponent of Saint Genevieve and his reliquary. Every time they would do the procession from Saint Etienne de Mont down to Notre Dame, it was Saint Marcel's reliquary that was carried up the hill to get Saint Genevieve carried back down, and then they would have their bestie mass in Notre Dame, and then cure the city. So they were very close. He stood by her. He made everybody listen to her. So he's one we really like.
We are super fans.
Super fans and the dragon. I was like, a dragon in Paris. How come I haven't heard this story before?
You hear something new every day.
Every day you learn something. But on this wall, there is a beautiful mural. This was painted under the time of the um, restoration of Viollet-le-Duc, but it was not done and designed by Viollet-le-Duc, so it looks very different. It was done by Théodore Maillot. It was done between 1864 to 1868, and it's really beautiful. I'll put a picture up, and I've done videos in Notre Dame of all these chapels, so I'll share that as well. But we give you way more information here. It is the Triumph of Saint Marcel is at the top and has him standing there. Guess what? On a dragon. The next side below is the transition of his relics from Saint Marie Church to Notre Dame. And it also has all sorts of people and officials of the diocese following. And I've tried to find more information because in it looks like there's a Saint Louis and some other prominent figures in French history. But I haven't gotten to the bottom of that one quite yet as well. But I love this. It's the colors. It's got these like bright oranges and greens and everything. It's really beautiful. And then there is also some other saints in here. So you have Saint Alor. He was the Archbishop of Noyon in the 7th century. He came to Paris and apprenticed as a goldsmith, and he created 2 gold thrones for King Clotaire II with precious stones. There was enough gold to create 2 thrones. So he had said, we're supposed to do one. And they said, well, there's too much gold. You gave us so much gold. We made a second one. He was so impressed by his honesty that he brought him to court and placed him in charge of the treasury of the mines, metals, and casters of coins for the country.
Another fun fact we would have never learned.
Another fun fact. In 1212, his arm was moved to Notre Dame.
I mean,
Just his arm.
wow.
That's it. Yeah. There is another really fantastic cenotaph. This one is to the Monseigneur Louis de Quélen. This is a really neat one. It was done again by Victor Geoffroy Deschamps in 1852. It was ordered in 1807 by the Cardinal Fesch, who was the uncle of Napoleon and also seen in the coronation of Napoleon. It was assigned to Saint-Sulpice. He was close to Louis XVIII and Charles X as well. He blessed the first stone of the Chapelle Expiatoire, which is where the remains of Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI were found. In the 1830 revolution, he was forced to flee the Archbishop's palace twice. After the anniversary of the death of the Duc de Berry, the Republicans caused a riot and destroyed his palace. He fled to the convent of the Ladies of the Sacred Heart, which is today the Musée Rodin. And he showed great charity during the cholera plague of 1832, and he's buried right outside of here. But this is a really neat one because he would, before the fire, you'd always go in there and his stone, but it was like almost black. It was so filthy dirty, but his hand was always shiny white because people would always touch it and rub it. So I remember going in there and be like, well, you got to rub it. Obviously, it must be good luck. And today, even though it's completely clean and beautiful now, his hand is still shinier than the rest of him.
That is, wow, that's a lot. That's
I
weird.
know, I kind of love it. There's a great picture on the outside, the wall of that's still closing off the north side of the church on the outside. A great picture of them cleaning it with the before and after. Like his left side of him is completely black and the right side is completely white. And it's amazing the difference. On the right wall is another fantastic cenotaph. This one is massive. It's huge. It's like life size. It's of the Cardinal de Bellois, Jean Baptiste. He was Archbishop 1802 to 1808, so the time of Napoleon. And with this one, to his right is Saint Denis standing there with his head attached to his head, to his body. Bellois is giving money to a woman, to orphan girls. It was done by Louis Pierre Dessin and it done in 1818. But this one is amazing. I mean, it literally is bigger than life size, the figures. And it's a massive presence there on the right side. Um, when he was a bishop, Pope Pius VII asked for his resignation when all the bishops were finalizing the Concordat. Bellois was the first to submit, which impressed Napoleon, who appointed him to the Senate. Napoleon ordered this tomb made for him after his death. So it was actually made a tiny bit before Viollet-le-Duc. But it is a pretty amazing one to see. And he's up there on this chair reaching down. And Saint Denis looks like, he was quite the hot little ticket back then. When he has his head on, he was this version of him is pretty handsome.
Yeah, I prefer the head version. Like, let's just keep them all connected there, you know? We
I
don't,
like my men to still have their head attached.
yeah, the bar is low, you know?
I mean, sometimes it's like maybe not,
Yeah,
but
exactly. I'm married. Sometimes his head could disconnect, you know?
yeah, sometimes, you're that inner voice like, "Oh my gosh." But yeah, it's pretty amazing and and this was another place where the before pictures aren't as like it's just I think when everybody goes into Notre Dame and you see it and you're just struck with how white it is. But like I just had some clients and I took to the Marais and we went into Statue Stash and I told them, I said, tomorrow morning you gotta go to Notre Dame and it becomes even more noticeable after you've been like Statue Stash is such a beautiful church, but it is so dark as the stone is just dirty, dark. But if you go into Saint Etienne du Mont, it's very white. But the back part of it, I think because I think as the back part of the church didn't have you have the nave in the center where they were doing the incense and all the candles and everything. I think that's why it definitely was much, much dirtier. But the back side of it, a refresher of all the paintings on the wall was the biggest difference back there.
Yeah, and like it's nice that they've been cleaning up all of Paris since the Olympics. We like seeing everything scrubbed clean.
Yeah, but did you see they just announced about like getting rid of 500 streets and turning them into parks?
Yeah, everyone's freaking out up in Walmart because they're trying to make it completely car free. And
Yeah.
people who live here are like, we live here. Like, we have garages, we have cars, and they're forcing them to redo the facades of the buildings way earlier than normal, and people can't afford it. So everyone's hanging signs out their windows being like, we're not Euro Disney here. Like, people live here.
Yeah, and that's, it's funny because I keep seeing it's like I think it was on, I don't know, CNN or it was something, and I keep seeing all these people on Instagram in America sharing this. And they're all like, this is amazing, but you know, the bit it is fantastic, and of course we need to do things for the environment, but you have to think of how difficult we live here, so we know how difficult it is sometimes to get around the city. But case in point, the number one thing, the night of the fire of Notre Dame, which was almost 6 years ago, they had a hard the firemen couldn't get there fast enough because of the traffic, because of closing and getting rid of streets and not just closing them so now all of a sudden a fire truck could go. There like there's barricades and there's furniture and there's all these things. So it's if they do that more and more, which is it's like that's great and there's one really good side of it, but the other side of it is still amazing a major city and there's things that need to function. And if they get rid of all these streets, it's only going to get that much worse. And if you are waiting for a ambulance or a police or a fire department to come to save you or your loved one, I think you want some of the streets.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you were saying, or somebody was telling me, like, even their neighborhood, like, you have to go all the way around because the one street to get to them is blocked. So now you have to take like a 20-minute detour to like get to your street because it's just like they keep closing more and more. And we always knew this was coming because the mayor, this has been her dream. She said it since like day one. She wanted to, make the city car free. But yeah, it's becoming more and more difficult and more polluted because people are just sitting in traffic all the time now.
Yeah. So it's you're not really changing, and I mean you are, but you're just moving the problem to a different place. But like if I and so I tell my clients if they're coming, everybody's like Uber, Uber, Uber. And I'm like, don't take Uber anymore. Take a taxi because there's places taxis could go that Ubers can't. And so if you're going from like where I live in Saint-Germain up to you, if I took an Uber, it's going to take me like all the way over almost to the Arc de Triomphe and back down to get to you. So it could take 40 minutes in traffic. And I could be in Champaign in the same amount of time as it would take me to take an Uber to get to you. But if you take a taxi, it could go straight through in front of the Louvre. It could go all these places. But still, there's times that they close off different things, and you have to go from the Louvre all the way to the Arc de Triomphe and then all the way back down just to get to Saint-Germain. So it's kind of crazy, and that's just more idling and exhaust.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like we're in this weird period where they're transitioning, so it's just worse right now. And I guess the hope is like people won't want to drive anymore, but it's just kind of
Yeah.
right now.
Well, they've also changed the rules about and I don't know. I don't think they're fully in effect yet, but they will be soon that um cars of a certain age can't even come into Paris. So they have to be more energy efficient to even be allowed to drive in the city.
Wow, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, I think Giuseppe was talking about that too, that they're checking all that. You have to pay a fee to enter, and you do already. And yeah, you're not even allowed to enter if it's your car's too old.
Yeah, and you're not even allowed to enter the center, so like the first through the fourth, unless you have a reason, like you are, if you don't live, if you live there, of course, or if you have an appointment, or you're going to a restaurant, or you have like, you're going to the opera, you have to at some point. I don't know how they're going to begin checking that, but you basically can't be driving in there unless you're supposed to be driving in there.
Yeah, no, we definitely got to keep watching how things develop. And yeah, it's been tough though.
It's
Definitely.
a good idea, and it's just interesting because everybody that I see in the States is like, this is amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but.
Yeah. Wait a minute. There's two sides to every story.
And I think it's different when you're living here and you're trying to get someplace, or, it's now I'm telling clients sometimes I'm like, you just need to, it'll be faster if you just walk.
Yeah, yeah, and it's true. I mean, Paris is not that big.
No, it's not. And it's such an easy place to walk. Because, it could be a 15-minute walk on foot, but it could be a more than 30-minute taxi ride.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, make sure you tune in next week as we continue our journey around Notre Dame and head over to ClaudineHemingway.com to learn more. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.